All right, AP 3D, I'm going to be going over the wire sculpture and how to get started because the prep for this project is worth 50 points. So the first thing you will see is there is a handout for you to take notes when you see my PowerPoint. On the second page of that handout, it says what you need to do. Step 1 is list 10 to 15 objects you would like to make out of wire. You need to keep in mind the object needs to be man-made objects, so no animals or plants. An object with ample volume, so an object that is not flat, something that you can turn and see three-dimensionally from every side. After listing the 10 to 15 items and discussing them with your instructor, you will narrow them down to 3 objects. You will create multiple contour line drawings of each object. You will print off images. You will create sketches from different angles of the objects. You should find images of your object online and print them off as reference. You should find multiple viewpoints of your object. So it says right here, list 10 to 15, 10 or more objects. That's worth 5 points. Discussion with the teacher and narrowing it down to 3 is 5 points. Okay, so I'm going to switch the screen for a minute. So I have made my list. Okay, I made a list of 10. I have a mantle clock, blow dryer, a flute, because I used to play the flute in high school. Vintage radio, like a 1950s one, vintage can opener, Russian stacking dolls, the nesting dolls that open up, a car, a book, a Ferris wheel, and a phone. Okay? If you were to come to me with this list, there are several on here I would instantly cross off. A car is way too big to make out of wire. A book is too flat. Okay, I had a student do a book a few years ago, and this is what her sculpture looked like. It was an open book, pages straight. It looked like that. Flat, it sat flat. There's nothing to it that is three-dimensional or interesting to look at. There's no movement. There's not enough form. Okay, Ferris wheel. That is way too big. It's not really an object. It's more of like a thing you ride. I had a student try to do that one year. It took a whole semester. So you need to think size-wise. A phone, okay? What kind of phone? If you want to do your iPhone, all you have is an itty-bitty tiny box. But you could think, what about a vintage phone? Okay, what about one of the old school ones where there's a thing that you hold up to your ear, and then like one of the ones that have the nozzle that you speak in with the rotating dial. Okay, a vintage one, yes, that would work. Rushing stacking dolls, those are kind of small. If I were to do that, I'd have to make it bigger and I'd have to make multiple pieces that stack within each other. That would be kind of difficult to do with the details. A vintage can opener would work, has a nice form. A vintage radio would work. A flute would work. It might be tricky because it's kind of small. A blow dryer would work well, and a mantle clock. So once you discuss your objects with your teacher, you're going to narrow it down to 3. So if I were to narrow down my list, I would do the mantle clock. I would maybe choose the blow dryer. And I would maybe choose the radio, the vintage radio. Okay. Now, once you have it narrowed down to 3, the instructions say to find and print images of the objects from all angles. So this is when you will use your school computer. You'll pull up Google and start to look at images. So I'm really liking the form of these mantle clocks. This one's quite nice right here as well. So I would try to find images of the clock from the front, from what it looks like from the side, and what it looks like from the back. I would need to do that for my 3 objects. Okay, so it says find your 3 objects, print off images of the objects from multiple viewpoints. And then the last step is to do contour line drawings of your objects. So what that means is I would get 3 different pieces of paper. My first object is a mantle clock. So the mantle clock I like, let's say I have my images printed, goes side to side. So I would find what I need and I would start to do contour line drawings. Contour line drawings are just simple drawings that look like you're outlining the clock. And you can focus on the lines that you're doing. Okay, simple contour line drawings. They don't have to be very detailed, but they should be replicated or replicas of your objects. I'd have to do 3 of them, okay? Once I do all 3 drawings, then I can talk to the teacher again and decide which object I'm actually going to do. Okay, I'm gonna do the mantle clock. So the first step is to get some bigger paper and to draw out the top layer of your object. So this is the front image of my mantle clock, okay? I can assume that the back of my mantle clock, if I were to turn this paper over, the back of my mantle clock would be a little bit more simplified. It wouldn't have as much detail as the front. I could, if I wanted, I could sculpt the gears and whatnot that go on the inside of the clock to give it more of a unique look, make it have more form or more elements to look at. Okay, so back, front. Then the next step is to start building either the front or back with wire. So the wire I have comes on these really big spools. This, it says dark anneal wire. It is 18 gauge. This wire has a grease on it. It will turn your fingers a little bit black. You have to share these with your classmates. These are about $20 each. I don't have enough for everyone to have their own, but your whole project should mostly be made out of this big wire. There are bags, white bags like this where the wire are, filled with wire cutters. Wire cutter sets, let me say. So within the set, there should be a few different tools. There's only a few tools in here that actually cut the wire, okay? So someone messed this bag up because I have 2 of the same ones. I have double of that one, okay? So these that have the angled edge, these are the ones for cutting. These are also another favorite pair of mine because the tip is curved and they're good for little corners. So what I'm going to do to get started, so I'm going to pull off just a tiny bit of wire and I'm going to lay it down on the paper the best I can, pinching, moving the wire around, okay? Let me get this. The wire is hard to figure out how to work with when you first start, but once you get started, it gets a little bit easier. Okay, I'm gonna cut this so I can have a smaller piece to use. Lay it down, bend it, and I'm gonna keep working with this till it's perfect. So I'm gonna keep trying to bend it so it'll lay flat. Okay, now I need to lock the ends together. There's a few ways I can lock the ends together so that it loops. I'm going to use these ones. I'm going to bend it so it makes like a loop. You can see that. I'm going to take this side, figure out where I need it bent. I need it bent right here, so I'm going to kind of mark it with the tool. Slide that through the hole that I have, bend it back. Okay, I'm going to squeeze really hard and clamp this and clamp this. Your joints on your project have to be squeezed tightly. If not, your project is going to be wobbly, which actually marks you down. Your project has to be sturdy. There are rubrics printed for you to review. And that's how I would have this piece, okay? Now, I already have this first layer made as an example, okay? So I slowly went around the whole entire thing and outlined each piece and put it together, okay? You can see there are small little pieces of wire on this. What that is a really thin wire. This is called 28 gauge. It has that grease on it as well. What you do is you pull off what you need, you stick it under that metal clamp, and you squeeze it and it will cut it off, okay? The little pieces are good for kind of twisting, holding pieces together. So for example, when I did this top piece, I had the outer ring and the inner ring. Well, how am I going to get them to float together? I'm going to use these smaller pieces. So what I did was started on one side, and twisted it, okay. Twisted these around, laid this down really carefully, put this piece in the little twisted area, and then start twisting these again. Then move it around. Okay, it will be wobbly at first because I don't have more supported wire pieces in here. I need to go in and add some more. The thin wire is so thin and weak. I would not recommend using a lot of it on your project. You need to be using the thicker wire the most. Okay, so I would clamp that and cut off any excess that I have. Okay. So what I would do next is once I have the front piece built, if I want to build the back where this is up more, I need to build the sides going up, okay? So what I could do is I could say I want my side pieces 3 inches or 4 inches tall. What I should do first is get a ruler and measure it and cut how many support pieces I need. So if I think I'm going to need 7 and 7 for the sides to make 14, I should sit here and cut all of these at once so they're all the same length. So then what I can do is curl the side, hook it on here, clamp it. Okay, see how it's not staying up? What I can do if it's not clamping is I can try to twist the wire around, or I can get the smaller wire and use the smaller wire as a support, which is what I probably would do anyways. So to get this to stay, have this here, squeeze this again, try to get rid of that curved piece. Okay, then I'd get some of this metal, smaller wire, and I'm going to do like an X wrap around this. So I'm going to go diagonally one way to make this stand. Then I'm going to switch over, and you can see it's standing already. It looks weird from the way the camera's angled. Now I'm going to wrap it diagonally this way. And this might be a little bit tricky to do because that little piece is there. But the more I wrap these joints, the sturdier it is. Again, you do not want to make a project that is wonky or wobbles or that doesn't sit flat on the table, that knocks you down, that shows you're not in the mastery level. It makes you in the developing skills or needs improvement categories, okay? So I would have this here, and then I would add my other ones where I need, all on the sides. And once that's done, I can start attaching it to these pieces so that I have, this is like the side view from the top down, okay? This project should take you about a month. Again, do not pick a project to make that is something ginormous like a car or a house or a washing machine. etc. It needs to be an object that can kind of fit. Think if it were to fit on a table or in your hands. If it's an object that fits in your hands, you can make it larger. Like, let's say you want to do lipstick or nail polish. Make it bigger size so it's a unique object that you're sculpting out of wire. If you need any help, send me an email. And that's about it.